I'm Margaret De Rouleaux, and this is Act 3. I have a very interesting guest today. His name is Ron Zaleski. Ron has had an interesting life. He owned a gym and very much into health, but now he's doing something different. We're going to hear a little bit about his histories first. Ron, where are you from?
I was born in Southampton and raised in Hampton Bays and had moved to Flanders. A big move from Hampton Bays to Flanders.
That whole strip, you managed to get along that stretch. That was a big distance.
Yes, it was.
You know, you were telling me a little earlier that you were the owner and the operator of the gym and the
right.
scuba school there, right?
7Z's, which turned to Peconic Health and Racket, and then I had closed it down to do what I'm doing now.
All right. But what got you interested in doing that kind of work?
Well, my father had started a scuba shop, and then I got involved to help him with it, and then I took it over because it was too much for them, and then I kept building it and building it and building it.
Yeah, it was a very interesting place. You had a nice pool.
Mm-hmm.
And did you actually teach scuba
Yeah, we taught
technique?
scuba classes. That was the main thing we started with, was
Yeah.
scuba. Then we added the gym on later.
Yeah. Do you still do that?
Yes, I do a lot of that.
You do a lot of scuba?
Yeah.
And you said that you one point had some kind of a breakthrough in what you wanted to do, and you changed from running this kind of a business
Right.
to what?
Well, I started a nonprofit, thelongwalkhome.org, and how that came about, as I was telling you earlier, I had been in the Marines in 70 to 72, and I had orders to go to Vietnam with 5 others, and my orders got changed, and they went and I didn't. And before I got discharged, I had met one of the 5, and he was limping. And I said, "What happened?" He says, "We all got shot and 2 are dead." And being angry and arrogant as I was at the time, I decided I didn't want them to have died in vain. They fought for my freedom. I can do what I want. So I stopped wearing shoes in 1972. But I never told anybody. If anybody asked me, "How come you don't wear shoes?" I'd say, "I don't feel like it. You got a problem with that." So I put a lot of people off that I was weird and I was angry and hostile. So I didn't do myself any favors. But doing it as a memorial for my friends, it was useless, which I found out in 2005. And because...
Now, wait a second. From 1977 to 2005, you never explained
No.
Why you didn't wear
My
shoes.
family didn't know. My friends, nobody knew why I did it.
And what business were you in then? Did you have your gym then?
I had it for most of those years,
Yeah.
but I also did, other little odd jobs here.
Okay.
But what happened in 2005 was a little boy asked me that I was teaching to swim, "How come I don't wear shoes?" And when he asked me, it was like God was speaking to me through that boy, and that's the first person I ever told. And when I told him why, I realized that I had a hollow memorial going. It was useless. I helped no one, especially the guys I had done it for. I wasted my freedom, I felt. So then I decided that I was going to walk the Appalachian Trail to get an answer. It was like me doing my own personal penance. And when I did it, I figured, well, I'll raise some awareness for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because that's, the big thing I see that's goes throughout everything, through the Vietnam era, through every war, they suffer. Because when I was in the Marines, I was in the barracks where they had the guys for Section 8 that were getting mental discharge. And every night I'd hear screaming in the night with these guys screaming with their nightmares. And in my first duty station, and just the regular barracks, I asked the guys, "Why are they screaming?" And they're telling me they all have nightmares.
And these are guys who had come back from Vietnam?
Yeah. So, but, at 19, I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking about getting through this and, making it out myself. And so in 2005, I realized because I have done nothing, I have allowed this to go on. And, like I said, I went to do penance and, work to create awareness. And while I'm doing that, I figured, well, what good is creating awareness unless I have a plan? And then I created the plan, and then I realized, well, what good is a plan unless I get it enforced? So, the plan that has evolved through all of this is that we want grieving for all of these guys before they get out of boot camp. When you get in the service, you raise your whole life not to kill, and then they train you to kill. And you don't understand the trauma you're going to go through if you see your buddy killed. I mean, we all have trauma. you know, you're in a car accident and one of your friends dies, it bothers you.
Sure.
You know, it's going to affect you. If your dog dies, it affects you every time you see a dog like that. So, so I want them to know what they're going to, you know, what they could encounter. Like if their buddy dies, they're going to go through these emotions. They're going to have feelings that are going to come up, so that they're, you know, they have an idea of what's going to happen to them. So they're, you know, they have some kind of idea. Because at 19, you just think nothing's ever going to happen to you, nothing bothers you, and that's it.
So you think that when troops are inducted into the service in some way, they should be given some kind of training from the get-go? Right
from the get-go, just to make it that it's okay to be human. It's okay to have feelings. So, and then when they get back, what we want is mandatory counseling. They offer counseling, but you have to ask for it, and they discourage you from getting it. If you make it mandatory, everybody gets it. And if you give it to them before they get discharged, because the guys that get a Section 8 discharge, anything but an honorable discharge, aren't going to get the benefits to get counseling.
Oh, you don't get benefits if you're discharged?
If you're dishonorable, anything but an honorable discharge, you don't get any benefits.
A general discharge, you don't get benefits?
You may. I'm not 100% clear. You may get some, but you may not get enough. But you know, after you get out, it's too late, because if you come home, you're still in the fight or flight mode, and you can work with them still. But after they get out, and then they start having the nightmares, and they don't know how to deal with it, then they, you know, they'll commit suicide, go homeless, or go to prison, or whatever.
Now, you call your organization the Long Walk Home.
Correct.
Is it a nationwide group involved in this?
Well, I mean, I network with a lot of other groups, and we work mainly to get the legislation enforced, because they have legislation passed. They passed the Joshua Omvig Suicide Prevention Act, and they've allocated $200 million for it, but they use the money to do studies, and they don't make it mandatory. Because if you make it mandatory, then it takes away the stigma that there's something wrong with you, because they're all going through it. Because a guy may have a problem, but he's not going to say anything, because he may be told that, oh, if you do this, you're not going to get a federal job. In some places, in, you know, some services, they say, oh, you know, okay, it's all right. But I mean, the guys I have talked to, they've been discouraged from getting it, or it's so superficial that it means nothing.
There have been reports that there have been some efforts made to bring troops home in a group. I mean, when you came back from Vietnam, you were sort of released on your own recognizance, but now they sort of let you come home with a group. They don't disperse the group of them until they have some kind of debriefing, and then they're allowed to go to their families as a group.
Right.
It's not done one-on-one.
But it's not done with all the branches. And if we make it mandatory across the board for all branches, then they all get it. Not just some where they're doing this and ones where they're not. And, you know, and then it still has a stigma. But if they're made aware that they have feelings and this is what's going to come up for them, and then, you know, these are ways to deal with it when they get back. So that also shows that we care, the government cares, by doing something instead of just giving lip service and then, you know, insufficient programs, or programs that are hard to get, or programs you have to ask for. You know, we let them there, we held them by the hand while we trained them to do their job. Now when they come home, let's hold their hand and train them so they can go home and have at least a halfway shot at a decent life and going back to normal as they possibly can.
Do you work with therapists and doctors to create a therapeutic model for this kind of thing?
I'm working with a group that's out in Colorado, and they're working to do programs, but you know, they run into stone walls, because it's like they step on toes because the military is doing something and here's an outside organization doing it. So it gets a little dicey. So that's why we want the people's, our attitude has to change about how we look at it also. Because when they get out and they become homeless, it's too late. Because you can't, I go up to homeless guys, they're angry, they don't want to talk, and they're too far gone to help them. But if we do it while they're still in the military, they have a chance. I mean, the ones I work with, they're developing programs that they can do with them, and part of it's allowing them to talk and allowing them to share what they've experienced, because they bottle it up, because you're not going to tell your parents or your wife what you did. Because I know one person where the wife bugged him, tell me, tell me, tell me. So he told her, and she like, how could you do that?
Yeah.